Tonight's shir is being dedicated by an anonymous donor. His Roshei Tevis are AA, and it's an honor. And l'schus, Harav Reuven Zelik Tarragon, Shlita, for his commitment and dedication to his Talmidim. He should be Zoiche to continue to be Marbitz Torah, La'orech Yomim V'shonim Toivos, and see and experience the Kiyum of Oid Yenuvun B'Seva, the Shenim V'Ra'ananim Yiyu. Do you know the tour in Orachayim, Simen Tov Chav Ches, gives a simen for the Kvius of Moyadim. Probably because, once upon a time, they didn't have calendars so as much as we do. So he gives a siman for the Kvius HaMoyadim, At Bash, etc. And the At, the Aleph Tov, stands for what? The Aleph Tov stands for Aleph Shel Pesach. Always falls out on the same day in the week as Tov, as Tishah B'Av. Pashtus is just a technical siman, but probably there's meaning to it, especially that as far as this particular siman, the Tur adds the siman al matzos umerorim yochluhu, that on the same night that we eat matzos, on that same night we experienced merorim, which is the Churban Beis Hamikdash and Tisha B'Av L'Doros. So what does this mean? It could be that the idea is that even though Churban and the Geula are two opposites. I mean, what happened on Pesach and what happened on Tisha B'Av are two opposites, but we're trying to say that it's not just a Galgal HaChoyze Ba'olam. It's not just a matter of a wheel of fortune, but it all depends on our behavior. We can transform destruction into construction, and vice versa. We can make binyan into churban. It all depends on us, and that's why it's the Aleph and the Tov are on the same day. We go from the Aleph to the Tov, but we can go back from the Tov to the Aleph and make Tisha B'Av into a Zman of redemption. The halacha is that Erev Tisha B'Av, Shechali is b'Shabbos, Mailal Shulchanoi, and the same is on Tisha B'Av, Shechali is b'Shabbos. Mailal Shulchanoi afilik esuda shloimoi b'shaitoi. It's a very strong expression, shloimoi b'shaitoi, who has what Shloimeh had b'shaitoi, but what are they trying to say? It could be, Shloimeh had his shaitoi, when he had everything. And then he was a shloimeh shaloi b'shaitoi. He had nothing. Malach al makloi. In the end, he came back. He restored his glory. We might look at the way Shloimeh conducted himself b'shaitoi as something negative when we see that from there he went downhill. But truth is that probably because of Shloimeh, who he was b'shaitoi, he had the courage and he had the hope to come back to where he came from. And therefore, we still look up at the Shloimeh b'shaitoi. And so also, a Yid on a Tisha B'Av Shechali is b'Shabbos, eats the Suda Shloimeh b'shaitoi. Shloimeh built the Beis Hamikdash, but the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So now it's a Shaloi b'shaitoi. But nevertheless, we remember the b'shaitoi, and that gives us hope, and that convinces us to do something about restoring Chadesh Yomeinu Kekedem, about coming back to where we came from. And that's why Tisha B'Av is a moyed, because Yehafchu Yomim Elu L'Sasayin U'Lesimcha. That the Shloah HaKodesh says in Parshas Vayeshev, Ki bevadai gilgul kol hamoyadim shel kol hashono, Hein Eila Shel Moyadei Hashem, Hein Moyadim D'Rabbanan. That it's a sure thing, he says, that the time that the Moyadim fall out in terms of the Parshas HaShavua, whether they are Moyadei Hashem or Moyadim D'Rabbanan, is not a coincidence. Bekulon yesh shaychus la'oisan aparshiyos shehein cholois bohem. Ki hakoil b'chsav miyad Hashem olai hiskil. Now, Tisha B'Av, it's also a moyed, as the Rishonim say, that we don't say Tachanun on Tisha B'Av because it's called a moyed. So it's Bechlal the Moyadei Hashem, the Moyadim D'Rabbanan, that the Shlo tells us that they for sure have a shaykhis to the Kriyas HaTorah that we learn that week, and Parshas Devarim is always read the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. Well, it first of all has to do with the fact that in Parshas Devarim it says Eicha Eso Levadi Torchachem Masachem V'Rivcha, and you know Chazal say that there are three Nevi'im that were Misnabe be'Eicha. There's the Eicha Eso Levadi Torchachem Masachem V'Rivcha, and there's what we learn in the Haftarah, what Yeshayahu said, Eicha Hoysal Lezoino Kirya Ne'emona, and that leads to the Kinas HaChurban of Yirmiyahu, Eicha Yoshva Bodod Ha'ir Rabbosiyom. So Avada, there's a shaykhis, but according to the Shla Kodesh, there should be a shaykhis also of the Moyed dimension of Tisha B'Av, of the festival, so to speak, of Tisha B'Av. Is also shaykh to Parshas Devarim that we always read before Tisha B'Av. And how's that? So you know that Tosfos in the beginning of Masechtas Gittin says that Masha Noihagim Lichtoiv Yud Beis Shuras Beget. The minig is that a get should have 12 lines. Oimer Rabbeinu Tam Mishum de Get Gimel Tes Gematria Yud Beis. Okay, we don't know why we call a get a get. There's really a get shichra for an evet also. A get really means a start. But that's what the Rabbeinu Tam says. V'ri shama b'shem Rav Haigor u'b'shem Rabbeinu Sa'adya mishum diksiv sefer krisis. The Torah refers to a get as a sefer krisis. So we say that it's kashiur yud beis shitin hamafsikin bein dalid chumshei Torah. The Gemara says in Bava Basra that you have to leave a space of 4 lines between sefer le sefer. So sefer krisis, we say that the krisis of the sefer Torah is the 4 lines that cut off one chumash from the next. That's the krisis of the sefer. And since the Torah calls the get sefer krisis, so we make 12 lines because there are 4 lines between Bereshis and Shemais, and 4 lines between Shemais and Vayikra, and 4 lines between Vayikra and Bamidbar. But what about the 4 lines between Bamidbar and Devarim? It would add up to 16 and not to 12. So says Tosfos, the Hefsik Shebein Chumash Bamidbar LeMishnah Torah Loy Choshev She'enoi Ela Choyzer V'Shoyne Mashel Amaylam. That we don't, just 1 second, that don't count the psukim that are between the shitin that are between Bamidbar and Devarim, because Devarim is not considered one of the series of Chumashim, because the Chumash really came to an end, so to speak. Devarim is a repetition. It's Eina Ela Choyzer V'Shoyne Mashel Amaylam. I mean, what we need to understand what's the pshat in Tosfos, because it's true that Mishnah Torah is a chayze v'shoyne, mashel amayla. So there would be room to say that therefore it's not considered part of the series. But if so, we shouldn't have the 4 shitin sheben sefer lesefer between Bamidbar and Devarim. But we do have the 4 shitin. So that tells us one of 2 things. Either that the 4 shitin are not really to be mafsik in the series bein sefer lesefer, or they should be counted. But what is Tishah saying? That since it's a chayzer v'shoyne, we see that in spite of the fact that it's chayzer v'shoyne, nevertheless, the Sefer Devarim, the Sefer Mishnah Torah, is part of the series, and therefore it requires a hefsek of Dalet Shittin between Bamidbar and Devarim. But Tishah says no, since it's chayzer v'shoyne, so we don't count these Shittin as one of the four Shittin in the Sefer Krisus, but we have them. Why do we have them? So I'm saying Taisus is difficult to understand because it's like he's taking it from both sides. On one hand, we do have the four shittin. On the other hand, he says that we don't count these four shittin because it's not being sefer la sefer, because it's einoi elo choyze v'shoyne mashel amaylo. So in the Sefer HaItur, he says something else. In the Sefer HaItur, in the Erech Get, he writes, "V'noagu lichtov bo yud beis shuris u'mefarshi taime keneged gimel shitin ben kol sefer v'sefer shel chumash." That it's keneged the three lines that we leave empty between kol chumash v'chumash v'hein yud beis shitin. It adds up to 12. V'lakach nikra sefer krisis. So he is counting the lines between Bamidbar and Devarim. But he's telling us that there are three lines being Sefer LaSefer, and therefore 4 times 3 is 12. But it's the Chapella, because in the Braisa, in Bava Basra, it's Mafurish that you have to have 4 Shitin being Sefer LaSefer. And he's saying that we have 3 Shitin. We don't find the Machlokes anywhere. We don't find an opinion that you're mafsik gimel shitin. Everybody agrees that you're mafsik 4 shitin. So what's the pshat in the itur? So we'll be talking because the tashbats in Siman Kuf Ayin Hey is moichiach b'shitas Rambam that the hefsik of shitin bein sefer l'sefer is not leikuv. Even if you didn't leave those spaces, the Sefer Torah is kosher. He proves it b'shitas Rambam, but then he writes, umihu, however, hainu im hoisef v'im gora. That's true if he made more empty space or less. Aval im lo yishavik ravche klal nire vaday de mifsul Sefer Torah b'hachi. But if you didn't leave any space, the Sefer Torah is avad apostle. And why? Says the Tashbaz, the loy nofik ben kol chumish v'chumish michlola de parshias. The ben chumish l'chumish is not excluded from the halacha of parshias. The imshinot surason mifsal b'hachi k'de isa b'perek haboyne. In other words, what he's saying is, we have, besides for this special halacha of shitin shebein sefer l'sefer, we have a halacha of parsha stuma and parsha psucha. But between parshas, a parsha psucha has to have a full empty line. Says the Tashbats that bein sefer l'sefer, besides for the halacha of dalit shitin, mitzad the halacha of bein sefer l'sefer, it's loigora than bein parsha l'parsha. And Memela, he says, in spite of the fact that I proved b'shitas Rambam that the halacha of spaces bein sefer l'sefer is not ma'akiv, but if you left not even one line, it'll be possible because of the halacha of parshias. So lefizeh, in the beginning of every sefer, besides the particular machayiv of hefsek ben sefer l'sefer, we also have a din of leaving space mihilchas parshias, and a parsha psucha needs a full line. So we can say that only 3 of these lines. We could say that the Itur held that only 3 of these lines are a special halacha of ben sefer l'sefer. One of these lines is really mikoyach the general halacha of a line between a parsha, and memela that is not connected with the idea of sefer krisis. So sefer krisis is the lines that we have ben sefer l'sefer, and those are 3 lines according to the Itur, because the Itur held that one of those lines are really mikoyach the din of ben parsha leparsha. So we can explain the Itur. But you know that in Bava Basra over there, it says, Bein chumash lechumash shel Torah, dalet shitin. V'chein bein kol navi v'navi. So the Brisa says that just like you leave 4 shitin between the chamisha chumshei Torah, you also leave Dalit Shitin between Kol Navi v'Navi. Now on the side, there's a Hagah on the Gillian that the Girs of the Rambam and the Tur is that Bein Navi L'Navi Gimel Shitin. That Bein Navi L'Navi you leave only 3. According to what we're saying, it could be that the Pshat is as we're saying. That what? That the M is the Hefsik Shebein Sefer L'Sefer is always 3 Shitin. In the Svarim of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, we have Dalit Shitin because we have also the Shita that comes Mikoyach the Bein Parsha La Parsha, whereas in the Nevi'im that there's no halacha of Parshias. So Mamela, we only have the halacha of Bein Sefer La Sefer, and when we only have the halacha of Bein Sefer La Sefer, so one shita is enough. 3 shitin are enough. Oh, but according to our nusach in the Gemara, and so is the Girsa Sarif, that Bein Navi L'Navi you also need 4 shitin. So it's muchach that all 4 shitin are mikoyach the halacha of Bein Sefer LeSefer. So it's not mikoyach the din parshis. Because if we'll say like the Tashbats, that in the beginning of the Svarim we have also the issue of Parsha, so then we would need in the Sifrei Torah 5 shitin, or we would say 4 shitin in the Sifrei Torah and 3 shitin in the Nevi'im. But if we have 4 shitin both in the Svarim of Torah and also in the Nevi'im, is the Chmuchech not like the Tashbats. However, we could maybe still hold on to the idea of the Tashbats by saying that true, Bein Sefer LeSefer, we have a mechayiv of Dalit Shitin, and that's why in Nevi'im we also have Dalit Shitin. However, in the Sifrei Torah, one of the Shitin plays a double role. One of the 4 Shitin also plays the role of Bein Sefer LeSefer, and also covers for the halacha of a parsha psucha. And therefore the Tashbats is saying la halacha that in spite of the fact that it's muchach in the Rambam that the Bein Sefer LeSefer is not likuva, but if you didn't leave even one line, it is ma'akiv because you have to leave a line mikoyach the halacha of parsha psucha. That could all be true, but that is not mechayiv an extra line. We can use the same blank space both for Bein Sefer LeSefer and for Bein and for Parsha Psucha. As I'm saying now, it says Mefurish in the Chidushay Anshe Shem on the Mordche in the beginning of Gittin. He says Bezah Loshen Va'arav Avrom Me Ensel said that Kevan Shebechol Parsha Psucha Tzorich La'aniach Shita Ein limnoisa b'shitin shebein sefer l'sefer. The belav hochi tzorech lahaniach shiur psucha. Yala l'chol sefer gimel shitin harei l'chol yud beis im dalit shel Mishnah Torah. So he is counting the dalit shel Mishnah Torah, but he says that all the dalit shitin, even though we have 4 times dalits, but really, how many of them are coming only mitzad the halacha of Bein Sefer LeSefer? Only 3 of each 4 is coming only mitzad the halacha. We count in the count of Sefer Krisos only those lines that are mechuyev only mitzad the halacha of Bein Sefer LeSefer. That 4th line that we would have anyway had to have mitzad Parsha Psucha, that line is not counted in the minyan of Bein Sefer LeSefer. Al kol panim, so we have 2 ways to explain al pi the Shita Sa'itur why the shiur is 12 lines. But according to both these ways, we are counting the lines that are between Bamidbar and Devarim. But it still doesn't help us understand the Tosfos, who says that we don't count the lines between Bamidbar and Devarim. So what is that supposed to mean? If it's Einoi Ela Choyze V'Shoyne, so it's not part of a series, and therefore it doesn't require Shitin HaMafsikin, so we shouldn't have them B'chlal. And if we have them, so you see that the Mishnah Torah is part of the series, and therefore we should count them in the Sefer Krisos. So maybe we could say b'derech ha'agoda, that the emes, we really need to understand what's the connection between the lines of space between the Chumshei Torah. How does that connect with the shuras of the get that cuts off the husband from his wife? L'chora adarabah. The connection between husband and wife is the full expression of, as the Gemara says in Kiddushin, v'haTorah amra v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. Right? I mean, and the v'davak v'ishtei v'hayu l'basar echad allows the recognition of the yochid be'el yoinim, and the v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, which comes to its fullest expression in the connection between ish v'ishtei, is the yesod of kol haTorah kula v'ida perusha zil gmor. So how is it, boy, from that it comes out that these two svarim, these only two svarim that are referred to as a sefer in the Torah. One is the Sefer HaTorah Hazeh, and the other one is the Sefer Krisis. These two svarim are really two opposites, because the Sefer HaTorah, the yesod of the Sefer HaTorah is v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, and the Sefer Krisis is the opposite. So how is it that we make the lines in the get to parallel the lines of space in the Sefer Torah? So we must say that the emes, the lines of the get, those are the lines that are missing in the Sefer Torah. Those spaces that there are in the Sefer Torah between one Sefer and the other Sefer, those spaces allow for the Sefer Krisis. In other words, the space in Torah is muchach, because, as Rashi says in the beginning of Vayikra, Lama hoyu ha'afsokos meshamshois litein revach lehizboinein bein parsha leparsha. And it's before in Rishonim that this has to do with the spaces in the Torah also, in the written Torah, in Rishonim and Menachos. So the space is necessary. And avada between the svarim, there has to be a space. Every sefer is an inyan la'atzmai. But nevertheless, the empty space is an opening for failure, because when there's a revach lehizboinei, you might do it the right way, you might do it the wrong way. If you don't use the revach lehizboinei properly, so then you lose that ish ve'isha shchina zachu shriya shchina shruya beineim till the point of sefer krisis. So Eila Devarim is divrei toicheichos, as Rashi says, which part of the lesson of Teicheichos is that we find out that Ein Adam Oimed al Divrei Torah Elohim Kain Nichshal Bahem, as the Gemara says in Gittin. By absorbing the Divrei Teicheicha, the block that we stumbled on actually becomes a building block. Ein Adam Oimed al Divrei Torah Elohim Kain Nichshal Bahem. And Sefer Mishnah Torah, the Gemara says in Megillah, Moshe mipi atzmoi amoron. The Gemara says it about the Klolos in particular, but the Goyen says that it's talking about the Sefer Mishnah Torah in general. And as the Maharal says in the Sefer Tiferes Yisrael, that the four Chumoshim are Rishonim are mitzad hanoisim. Mishnah Torah is mitzad hamakabel. So the idea of Einoi Elo Choizer V'Shoine Mashel Amaylo that Tosfos says means that Mishnah Torah is the Chazorah Mitzad HaMekabel. We review the Torah once again from Milamata Lamaylo. So Mitzad HaNoisen, we have a world with a Cholol Ponui. There's a space. It's a world of brokenness. And our mission is to be choize v'shoine, to use that space to operate within the brokenness of the world, and asher bara Elokim la'asos, as Chazal say in the Medrash, that la'asos is miloshin v'osisa es tziporneha, miloshin tikun. Bara Elokim, and our mission is la'asos, to correct, to fix, to perfect. Is Mamela to use that revach in order to be misboinen. So the hefsek and the krisus and the revach of the Sefer Mishnah Torah we need those 4 lines. Avada, it's part of the series, and it needs those shitin amafsikin. But these shitin amafsikin are already shitin of tikkun. These are not the shitin of shvira. The mitzad anoisen, we have those spaces to give us the revach le'izboinen, and sometimes we stumble on that and we fail. But here, it's already the toichecha. Over here, it's already the chazorah, the choyze v'shoyne. And in the world of choyze v'shoyne, those spaces become spaces of tikkun, and therefore they're not counted in the sheeting of the Sefer Krisus. So that's really our avodah. Our avodah in Chumash Devarim, Kulochem Devarim, B'shuvu el Hashem, B'derech Melitza. It's about the Sefer Devarim, Kulochem Devarim, B'shuvu el Hashem. That this whole Sefer is a Sefer of Toichecha, and Be'emes, if you look at the Dora Midbar, I mean, it's failure upon failure after failure, until actually in the end, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Hein boidi imochem mamrim ma'isem es Hashem va'afki achrei moisi." It seems like a failed mission, but nevertheless, everything we have is from Moshe Rabbeinu's not giving up and continuing to be madrichos. And so also we shouldn't give up on being madrich ourselves. Yeah. So every setback can be turned around, and shloime b'shaitoi becomes again a shloime b'shaitoi, and yehofchu yomim elu l'sasoin u'lesimche. Okay, Rabbi Sai, next Thursday night, we're not going to be able to get together. So I'm just telling you now. Und Mitzvah Hashem, der Eibusher soll helfen weiter. Okay. Chizku v'yamitz levavchem.